Hello, this is Let's Talk About Myths, baby, and I am your host, Liv, here with another episode of Statius' Thebaid, because, well, normally these would be coming out on a Tuesday, but here we are. That's where we're at. Because there aren't enough hours in the day, let alone among the horrors. It's like, how do you keep up with all the terrible things? It's like, and then my city is blanketed with smoke. You know, I 8 years ago, I left Toronto and I went back home. I moved back home, or rather close enough to home, to the West Coast, where I grew up. And not once in my 28 years at that point do I remember a smoke-filled summer where you just had a smoky sky and the smell in the air for like half the summer. I don't remember that at all. I moved back very first summer and then every single one after that. And then I lived there for 8 years and I moved back to Toronto. And anyway, the smoke is everywhere. I am here to read from the Thebaid because I want to, and because it is a good, I don't know, it's like a cleanse, you know? Let's go back. I mean, we're about to get into the war, but still, it's a mythical war that was written about 2,000 years ago, so we're doing it. Now, just a reminder, this is, unfortunately, an old clunky translation. That's how it works when I want to be reading these things out loud. And this is an epic that I think is best read out loud rather than me kind of digging it all out, primarily because it is like a lot of it is this war, this war against Thebes, but also it is just filled with so many really interesting moments from mythology and like connections to other moments from Greek mythology. But remember, this was written during the Roman period. The author is Roman, but he is working with Greek stories that are lost to us. So again, it's one of these cases where almost all of this could be based in very well known at the time Greek myths that, were only lost over the 2,000 years that followed. Or this Roman could have been inventing a lot of stuff like Ovid did. We really don't know. It doesn't change how interesting it is. It's just this added context that we can use to kind of pick apart what's going on. It's also a reminder that there are a lot of Roman names for the gods in this. Even though we are working with Greek myth, we are still being written by a Roman and so have these Roman names. There is a link in the episode's description to like a very old, very tertiary list of Greek to Roman names so that in case you're confused. Now, I imagine anyone who's listening to this has been listening to the rest of this reading series, so I won't recap too much, but just a reminder, we've been getting these kind of on and off moments leading to this war between the Argives from Argos and the Thebans from Thebes. It's kind of a civil war, it's kind of not. It's going to be brother against brother, along with all of these other famous heroes and characters of this world. And where we left off, Jocasta, who in this version of the story is still alive, it's badass, she goes and she tries to be a mediator, which was one of my favorite things to read. I mean, I love to see women in stories, surprise, surprise, but also specifically in this role, and somebody like Jocasta, who is otherwise like quite maligned in the overall mythology, but here she is this strong character who tries to broker peace, to mediate this turmoil between the brothers and therefore between Thebes and Argos. And it fails because toxic masculinity is here. And they just kind of send her back and start this war. And the Prince Amphiaraus of the Argives had taken out so many men with the help of Apollo that the underworld just opened up below him and sucked him underneath. And so next, we're going to get a little bit of the underworld, which is so rare and epic. We will even have a speech from Hades. So let's get right into it. This is The Thebaid by Statius, translated by J.H. Mosley, Book 8. When on a sudden the prophet fell among the pallid shades, and burst into the homes of death and the mysteries of the deep-sunken realm, and affrighted the ghosts with his armed corpse, all were filled with horror and marveled at the weapons and horses and the body still undecayed upon the Stygian shores. For no fires had whelmed his limbs, nor came he charred from the gloomy urn, but hot with the sweat of war and gory drops, and the dust of the rent plain beflecked his shield. Not yet had the Fury met and purified him with branch of yew, not had Proserpine marked him on the dusky doorpost as admitted to the company of the dead. No, his presence surprised the very distaff of the Fates, and not till in terror they beheld the augur did the parquet break the thread. At the noise of his coming, the carefree Elysian folk gazed around about them, and they whom far in the remoter gulf a deeper night and a blind region of denser shades overwhelms. Then sluggish meres and scorched lakes resound with groaning, and the pale furrower of the ghost-bearing stream cries out that a new chasm has cloven Tartarus to its depths, and spirits have been let in across a river not his own. By chance the lord of Erebus, enthroned in the midst of the fortress of his dolorous realm, was demanding of his subjects the misdoing of their lives, pitying not human but wroth against all the shades. Around him stand the Furies, and various deaths in order do, and savage vengeance thrusts forth her coils on jangling chains. The Fates bring the souls, and with one gesture damn them. Too heavy grows the work. Hard by, Minos, with his dread brother in kindly mood, counsels milder justice, and restrains the bloodthirsty king. Cocytus and Phlethlegon, swollen with tears and fire, aid in the judgment, and Styx accuses the gods of perjury. But he, when the frame of the world above was loosened and filled him with unwonted fears, quaked at the appearing stars, and thus did he speak, offended by the gladsome light. What ruin of the upper world has thrust the hateful light of day into Avernus? Who has burst our gloom and told the silent folks of life? Whence comes this threat? Which of my brothers thus makes war on me? Well, I will meet him, confusion whelm all natural bonds, for whom would that please more? The third hazard hurled me defeated from my mighty heaven, and I guard the world of guilt. Nor is even that mine, but lo, the dread stars search it from end to end and gaze upon me. Does the proud ruler of Olympus spy out my strength? Mine is the prison house, now broken, of the giants and of the Titans eager to force their way to the world above, and his own unhappy father. Why thus cruelly does he forbid me to enjoy my mournful leisure and this untranquil peace, and to hate the light I lost? I will open all my kingdoms, if such be my pleasure, and veil Hyperion with a Stygian sky. I will not send the Arcadian up to the gods. Why does he come and go on errands between realm? And I will keep both the sons of Tyndareus. And why do I break Ixion on the greedy whirling of the wheel? Why do the waters not wait for Tantalus? Must I so often endure the profanation of chaos by living strangers? The rash ardor of Pirithous provoked me, and Theseus, sworn comrade of his daring friend, and fierce Alcides, Hercules, when the iron threshold of Kerberos' gate fell silent, its guardian removed. It shames me too, alas, how Tartarus opened a way to the Odrysian plaint. With my own eyes I saw the Eumenides shed base tears at those persuasive strains, and the sisters repeat their allotted task. Me too, but the violence of my cruel law is stronger. Yet I have scarce ventured on stolen journey, nor was that to the stars on high, when I carried off my bride from the Sicilian mead, unlawfully, so they say, and forthwith comes an unjust decree from Jove, and her mother cheats me of half a year. But why do I tell all this? Go, Tisiphone, avenge the abode of Tartarus. If ever you have wrought monsters fierce and strange, bring forth some ghastly horror, huge and unwonted, such as the sky has never yet beheld, such as I may marvel at and your sisters envy. Yes, and the brothers. Let this be the first sign of my hatred. Let the brothers rush to slay each other in exultant combat. Let there be one who, in hideous bestial savagery, shall gnaw his foeman's head, and one who shall bar the dead from the funeral fire and pollute the air with naked corpses. Let the fierce thunderer feast his eyes on that. Moreover, lest their fury harm my realms alone, seek one who shall make war against the gods, and with smoking shield repel the fiery brand and Jove's own wrath. I will have all men fear to disturb black Tartarus, no less than to set Pelion on top of leafy Ossa. He finished, and long since was the gloomy palace quaking at Hades' words, and his own land, and that which presses on it from above were rocking. No more mightily does Jupiter sway the heaven with this nod, and bow the starry poles. But what shall be your doom, he cries, who rushes headlong through the empty realm on a path forbidden? As he threatens, the other draws nigh, on foot and now and shadowy to view, his armor growing faint. Yet in his lifeless face abides the dignity of augurship inviolate, and on his brow remains the fillet dim to behold, and in his hand is a branch of drying olive. If it be lawful and right for the holy shades to make utterance here, owe you to all men the great finisher, but to me, who once knew the causes and beginnings, creator also. Remit, I pray, threatenings and your fevered heart, nor deem worthy of your wrath one who is but a man and fears your laws. It is for no Herculean plunder. Such wars are not for me, nor for a forbidden bride. Believe these emblems, that I dare to enter Lethe. Let not Kerberos flee into his cave, nor Proserpine shudder at my chariot. I, once the best beloved of augurs at Apollo's shrines, call empty chaos to bear witness. For what power to receive an oath has Apollo here? For no crime do I suffer this unwanted fate, nor have I deserved to be thus torn from the kindly light of day. The urn of the Dictaean judge does know it, and Minos can discern the truth. Sold by the treachery of my wife for wicked gold, I joined the Argive host, not unwitting. Hence this crowd of new slain ghosts you see, and the victims also of this right hand, in a sudden convulsion of the earth. My mind still shrinks in horror. Your darkness swallowed me up from the midst of thousands. What were my feelings while I made my way on and on through the hollow womb of earth, and while I was whirled along, suspended in shrouding mist? Ah, woe is me, naught of me is left to my country or my friends, nor in the power of Thebes. No more shall I behold the roofs of Lerna, nor shall I return in ashes to my stricken father. With no pomp of tomb or pyre of kinsman tears, to you am I come with all my funeral train, nor likely to venture aught with yonder steeds. Content am I to receive my shade, nor remember my tripods any more. For what avails you the use of prescient augury, when the Parcae spin your commands? No, be you softened, and prove more merciful than the gods. If ever my accursed wife comes here, reserve for her your deadly torments. She is more worthy of your wrath, O righteous Lord. He accepts his prayer, and is indignant that he yields, just as a lion, when the glittering Messalian steel confronts him. Then most summons up his anger and his might. But if the foeman fall, to pass over him is enough, and to leave to the vanquished his life. Meanwhile, his chariot, garlanded with sacred wool in victorious bay, and feared but of late for noble feats of arms, is sought in the clear light of day in vain. Though by none vanquished and by none put to flight, the troops fall back and the ground is suspected by all, and the soldiers avoid the traces of the dangerous field. That ill-omened spot of ravenous destruction lies idle, shunned from awe of the hellish abyss. While Adrastus in a different quarter is encouraging his men, Palimon flies to him with tidings, scarce trusting what he has seen, and cries in terror. For it chanced that he stood nigh the falling seer and paled, poor wretch, to see the chasm open. Turn, prince, and flee, if at least the Dorian land yet remains in its place, and our native towers where we left them. No need of arms or bloodshed, why draw we against Thebes the unavailing sword? The impious earth sucks in our chariots and our weapons and men of war. Lo, even the field where we stand seems to flee away. With my own eyes I saw the road to deepest night, and the firm soil rent, and him, alas, Eclides, falling, than whom none was dearer to the Presian stars, and in vain I stretched out my arms and cried aloud, "It's a miracle that I tell. Only now has my charioteer left the furrowed ground and the smoking, foam-bespattered fields. Nor is the ruin shared by all. The earth knows its own children. The Theban host remains." Adrastus, horror-struck, is slow to believe, but Mopsus and a frighted actor were bringing the same tidings. Already rumor, bold to ply new terrors, reports that more than one have perished. Unbidden, not awaiting the wonted bugle call that sounds retreat, the troops take to headlong flight, but their movement is sluggish, their knees fail their eager haste, the horn-footed steeds themselves, one would think they knew, resist them and stubbornly defy every command, whether to hasten pace or lift their eyes from earth. More valiantly the Tyrians press on, but dark Vesper is already leading forth the horses of the moon. A scant truce brings the warriors sad repose, and night that will but increase their fears. How looks it now, do you think, when groans are granted their fill? How fell the tears from the loosened helms? Not customary delights, the weary warriors. They cast down their dripping shields just as they were. None wiped his spear, or praised his charger, or dressed and decked the plume of his polished helm. Scarce do they care to wash their grievous wounds and stitch up the wide gaping blows, so great the despair of every heart. Nor could the fear of battle persuade them to take food and due sustenance for war. All sing of your praises, Amphiaraus, and of your mind, unfailing oracle of truth. One speech is heard throughout the tents, that the gods have left them, and their protection is departed from the camp. Where, alas, the laureled chariot and the sacred arms are fillet-bearing crest? Is this the faith of Castalian lake and grotto and holy tripod? Is this Apollo's gratitude? Who now shall explain to me the falling stars, or the purpose of the lightning on the left, or the will divine that leaps in the slain entrails? Or when to march or tarry, what hour is profitable for battle, or rather calls for peace? Who now shall lay bare all the future, or with whom shall birds hold converse of my destiny? The chances of this war you knew also, both for yourself and us, and yet how great the courage in that inspired beast! You came and did join our ill-fated arms, and when the earth and your fatal hour called you, you had time to lay low the Tyrian lines and hostile standards. Then, even in the midst of death, we saw you a terror to the foe, and your spear still threatening as you did depart. And now what fate befalls you? Will you be able to return from the abodes of Styx and break forth from the depths of earth? Or do you sit beside the glad Parcae, your own deities, and by harmonious interchange do learn and teach the future? Or has the Lord of Avernus in pity granted you to watch Elysian birds in the groves of the blessed? Whatever your art, an eternal grief to Phoebus shall you be, and a loss that is ever new, and long shall you be mourned by a Delphi that is dumb. This day shall silence Tenedos and Chryse and Delos made fast for the bringing forth, and unshorn Branchus' shrine. Nor on this day shall any suppliant draw nigh to the Clarion temple gates, nor to the threshold of Dindymus, nor consult the Lycian god. No, the precinct also of the horned prophet, and the panting oak of Molossian Jove, and Trojan Thimbra shall be mute. The very streams and laurels shall of their own will fail and wither. The air itself shall utter no certain presage in prophetic cries, and no wing of bird shall beat the clouds. And soon shall come the day when you too shall be worshipped by truth-inspiring shrines, and your own priest impart your oracles. Such solemn chant do they make in honor of the prophet prince, as though they were paying the due of flame and gifts and mournful service to the pyre, and laying the soul to rest in the soft earth. Then broken were the spirits of all with loathing for the war. Even so, when sudden death snatched Tiphys from the brave Minii, no longer seems the tackling to obey, no longer the oars to endure the water, and even the breezes drew the vessel with less power. And now they were wearied of weeping, and having mourned their fill in converse, their hearts were lightened little by little, till sorrow was drowning in the approach of night and sleep that gently steals over tearful eyes. But elsewhere throughout the Sidonian city, far different was that night. In various sport before their houses and within they spend the hours of darkness, and even the sentinels on the walls are tipsy. Cymbals and the Idaean drums resound, and the pipe that makes its music by varied breathing. Then, in honor of their darling gods and every native deity in order sacred pines, everywhere swell high, everywhere are garlands seen and wreathed bowls of wine. Now mock they the witless augur's death, and again they vie in praising their own Tiresias. Now they tell the history of their fathers and sing from its beginnings the ancient tale of Thebes. Some tell of the Sidonian sea and the hands that grasped the thunderer's horns, and the mighty bull that plowed the deep. Others of Cadmus and the weary heifer and fields pregnant with bloody war. Others again of the boulders that moved to the music of the Tyrian lute and Amphion stirring rocks to life. These celebrate the labor of Semele, those the Cytherean nuptials and the train of brothers' torches that led Harmonia to her home. Every table has its story. It is as though Liber of late had ravaged Hydaspes, rich in gems and the kingdoms of the east, and were displaying to the folk the banners of his swarthy captive train and Indians yet unknown. Then for the first time Oedipus, who ever lurked unseen in his dread abode, came forth, they say, to the friendly gatherings of the social banquet, and, serene in countenance, freed his grey hairs from their black filth, and his face from unkempt straying locks, and enjoyed the kindly converse of his fellows and the solace denied before. No, partook of the feast, and wiped the undried blood from his eyes. To all he listens, and to all he makes reply, who was wont but to assail with sad complaint Dis and the Furies and his guide Antigone. They know not the cause. It is not the prosperous issue of the Tyrian war, but war alone delights him. He encourages and approves his son, yet would not have him win. But he searches for the first clash of swords, the seeds of guilt, with prayers unspoken. Thence his pleasure in the feast and the strange joy upon his face. Even so old Phineus, after the long fast that was his punishment, when he knew the birds were driven away, nor screamed any more about his house, yet believed he not wholly, recline hilarious at the board and handle the cups that no fierce wings upset. The rest of the Grecian host lay fordone with care and battle from a high mound in the camp of Adrastus, frail now and old, but forced by the curse of power to be watchful against disaster, heard with sinking heart the shouts of the merrymakers. From all sides the clamor of bronze and Theban uproar gall him, and the pipe grates harshly on his ears. He is vexed by the insolent shouts of the drunken, and the flickering torches and the fires already scarce lasting out the night. So when upon the waves a ship is whelmed in the silence of universal sleep, and the crew in careless trust commend their lives to the peace of ocean, alone upon the poop stands the vigilant helmsman, and the god who sails in the bark that bears his name. It was the time when Phoebus's fiery sister, hearing the sound of his yoked steeds and the roar of ocean's cavernous abode beneath the gathering dawn, collects her straying beams and with light flick of whip chases the stars away. The king calls the doleful council, and in dismay they ask who shall take up the duty of the tripod, to whom shall pass the prescient laurel and the widowed glory of the fillet. Straightway all demand holy Melampus' son, Theodamas, of high renown, with whom alone Amphiaraus' self was wont to share the mysteries of the gods and view the flying birds, nor grudge him so much skill, but rejoice to hear him called his like and nearest rival. Overwhelmed by the high honor and confounded by the unlooked-for glory, he humbly reverences the proffered leaves, and pleads that he is unequal to the task, and must needs for his merit be constrained, even as when, perchance, a young Achaemenian prince has succeeded to the throne in all his father's realms, though safer were it for him that his father still lived. His delight he balances with uncertain fear, whether his chiefs be loyal, whether the folk will fight against his reigns, to whom he shall entrust the frontier of Euphrates or the Caspian Gate. Then does he feel awe to wield the bow and to mount his father's own steed, nor can he see himself upholding the scepter with large grasp, nor as yet filling the diadem. He therefore, having set upon his locks the emblem of the twisted wool and held intercourse with the gods, proceeds in triumph through the camp amid shouts of joy, and, first evidence of his priestly office, prepares to appease the earth, nor seemed it vain to the sorrowing Danaans. Therefore he straightway bids 2 altars that he wreathed with living trees and well-grown turf, and on them, in honor of the goddess, he flings countless flowers, her own bounty, and heaps of fruit, and the new produce of the tireless year, and pouring untouched milk upon the altars, he thus begins. O eternal creatress of gods and men, who brings into being rivers and forests and seeds of life throughout the world, the handiwork of Prometheus and the stones of Pyrrha, you who first did give nourishment and varied food to famished men, who does encompass and bear upon the sea, in your power is the gentle race of cattle and the anger of wild beasts and the repose of birds. Around you firm, steadfast strength of the unfailing universe. As you hang in the empty air, the rapid frame of heaven, and either chariot does wheel, O middle of the world, unshared by the mighty brethren. Therefore are you bountiful to many races, so many lofty cities and peoples, while from above and from beneath you are all sufficient, and with no effort carries yourself star-bearing Atlas, who staggers under the weight of the celestial realm. Us alone, O goddess, do you refuse to bear? Does our weight vex you? What crime, I pray, do we unwittingly atone, that we come here a stranger folk from Inachian shores? All soil is human birthright, nor does it beseem you, worthiest one, to distinguish by a test so cruel and so mean peoples who are everywhere, and in every land your own. Abide you common to all alike, and bear alike the arms of all. Grant us, I pray, in war's due course to breathe out our warrior souls and restore them to the sky. Whelm not in burial so sudden our still-breathing bodies, haste not, for we shall come by the path all tread, by the permitted way, hearken but to our prayer, and keep firm for the Pelasgians the fickle plain, and forestall not the swift fates. But you, dear to the gods, whom no violence nor Sidonian sword did slay, but mighty nature opened her bosom to enfold in union with herself, as though for your merits she were entombing you in Kira's chasm. Gladly vouchsafe, I pray, that I may learn your supplications, conciliate me to the gods and the prophetic altars, and teach me what you did design to tell the peoples. I will perform your rites of divination, and in Phoebus' absence be the prophet of your godhead, and call upon your name. That place where you speed is mightier, I ween, than any Delos or Kira, or more august than any shrine. Having thus spoken, he casts into the ground black sheep and dark-hued herds, and piles up heaps of billowy sand on their living bodies, duly paying to the seer the emblems of death. Such things were happening among the Greeks when already yonder the martial horns were heard, and the blare of bronze drew fierce swords from their sheaths. From Tumessus' height to Siphone sends her shrill cry and shakes her locks, and with their hissing adds a sharpness to the trumpet's note. Drunken Kithaeron and the towers that followed a far different music listen in amazement to the unwonted din. Already Bellona is beating at the trembling gates, and the armed portals already by many a doorway Thebes is emptying fast. Horsemen set infantry in disarray, chariots delay the hurrying troops, as though the Danaans urged their rear. Thus at the issues of all 7 gates the crowded columns are stuck fast. Creon goes out by lot from the Ogygian, the Nestai send forth Eteocles, Haemon guards the lofty Haemolian, and Pretian and Electran pour forth the men Hypsias and tall Drius. The troops of Eurymedon make the Hypastae shake. Great-hearted Manichaeus crowds the Dircean battlements. Even so, when Nile in his secret region has drunk with mighty mouth the nurture of a distant sky and the cold snows of the east, he breaks up all his wealth of waters and carried his tempests to the sea in 7 wide channels over the fields. The routed Nereids take refuge in the depths and fear to meet the saltless main. But sad and slow move yonder the Inachian warriors, especially cohorts of Elis and Lacedaemon, and you of Pylos, robbed of your augur, you follow the late appointed Theodamus, not yet assenting to his command. Nor is it only your own ranks that miss you, Lord of the Tripods, all the host feels its loss. Less gloriously along the line rises that 7th crest. It is as though a jealous cloud were to snatch from the sky one of the Parnassian cluster. Spoiled is the glory of the wain, the axle wavers, shorn of one fire, and the seamen count their stars in doubt. But already battle calls me from a fresh source, Calliope. Supply new vigor, and may a mightier Apollo attune my lyre. The day of doom brings nigh to the peoples the fatal hour of their own asking, and death, let loose from Stygian darkness, exults in the air of heaven and hovers in flight over the field of battle, and with black jaws gaping wide invites the heroes. Not vulgar does he choose, but with bloody nail marks as victims those most worthy of life. In the prime of years or valor, and now all the sister strands are broken for the wretched men, and the Furies have snatched the threads from the Fates. In the midst of the plain stands the war god, with spear yet dry, and turns his shield now against these, now against those, stirring up the fray and blotting out home and wife and child. Love of country is driven out, and love of the light that lingers latest in the heart. Rage holds their hands all ready on the sword hilt and on the lance. The panting spirit strives beyond its corslet, and the helmets tremble beneath the quivering plumes. What wonder that the heroes are hot for battle? Horn-footed steeds are inflamed against the foe and bedew the crumbling earth with a snow-white shower, as though they were made one in body with their masters, and had put on the riders' rage. So champ they the bits and neigh to join the fight, and rearing toss the horsemen backwards. And now they charge, and the first dust clouds of the heroes begin to meet it in the onset. Both sides dash forward at equal pace, and seeing the intervening plain diminish. Then shield thrusts against shield, boss upon boss, threatening sword on sword, foot against foot, and lance on lance. In such close struggle they meet. Together their groans reek. Close-packed crests gleam over helmets not their own. The face of battle is still fair, plumes stand erect, horsemen bestride their steeds, no chariot is without its chief. Weapons are in their place, shields glitter, quivers and belts are comely, and gold as yet unsightly with blood. But when fury and valor, prodigal of life, give rein to passion, Arctos lashes not airy Rhodope so fiercely with hardened snow when the kids are falling, nor does Ausonia hear so loud an uproar when Jupiter thunders from end to end, nor are the Syrtes beaten with such hail when dark Boreas hurls Italian tempests upon Libya. Their darts shut out the day, a steely cloud hangs athwart the sky, and the crowded air has no room for all the javelins. Some perish by flung spears, others by spears returning. Stakes meet in the void and rob each other of the wounds they carry. Spears meet, and dread arrows winged with a double death rival the lightning stroke. No place for weapons earthward, every dart falls on a body. Often they slay and are slain unwitting. Chance does the work of valor. Now the press retires and now advances, loses ground in turn and wins it. Even so, when threatening Jove has loosed the reins of winds and tempests and sends alternate hurricanes to afflict the world, opposing forces meet in heaven. Now Auster's storm prevail, now Aquilo's, till in the conflict of the winds one conquers it, be it Auster's overwhelming rains or Aquilo's clean air. At the outset of the fight, Aesopian Hypsius repulsed the Thebalian squadrons. For these in fierce pride of race were thrusting their stout bucklers through the Evian lines, and slew Menacalus, the leader of the phalanx. He, a true-souled Spartan, child of the mountain torrent, shamed not his ancestry, but pulled back through bones and bowels the spear that would pass beyond his breast, let his back should show dishonor, and with failing hand hurled it back all bloody at the foe. His love Taygetus swims before his dying eyes, and his combats and the strong breast his mother praised. Dircaean Amyntas marks out Phaedimus, son of Iasus, with his bow. The swift fates! Already Phaedimus lies gasping on the field, and not yet the bow of sure Amyntas ceased to twang. Caledonian Agrius cut the right arm of Phegeus from off its shoulder, and on the ground it holds the sword in unyielding grip and shakes it. Achates, advancing, feared it as it lay amid the scattered weapons and struck at it, severed though it was. Stern Acamas pierced Iphis, fierce Hypsius Argus, Furies laid Abas low, and groaning from their different wounds they lay. Horseman Iphis, foot soldier Argus, chariot drive Abas, Inachian twins, had smitten with the sword twin brothers of Cadmus's blood, hidden by their helms war's cruel ignorance. But stripping the dead of all their spoils, they saw the horror of their deed, and in each dismay looked on his brother and cried that they were both at fault. Ion worshipper at Pisa overthrew Daphneus worshipper at Kira. In the confusion of his steeds, this one Jupiter praises from on high, that one Apollo vainly pities, too late to aid. Fortune on either side of the bloody fray sheds luster on mighty warriors. Cadmean Haemon slays and routs the Danaans. Tydeus madly pursues the ranks of Tyre. The one has Pallas' present aid, the other the Terinthian inspires, just as when two torrents break forth from mountain heights and fall upon the plain in twofold ruin. One would think they strove which could whelm crops and trees or bury their bridges in a deeper flood. Lo, at last one vale receives mingles their water, but proudly each would fain go by himself, and they refuse to flow down to ocean with united streams. Idas of Onchestus strode through the midst, shaking a smoky brand, and disarrayed the Grecian ranks, forcing his way with fire. But a great lunge of savage Tydeus' spear from nigh at hand smote through his helm and pierced him. In huge length he falls upon his back. The lance stays upright in his forehead. The flaming torch sinks upon his temples. Tydeus pursues him with a taunt. Call not Argos cruel, burn Theban in your own flames. See, we grant you a pyre. Then, like a tigress exulting in her first blood and eager to go through all the herd, he slays Ion with a stone, Pholus and Chromis with the sword, with thrust of lance 2 Halachions, whom Mira, priestess of Aegean Venus, bore against the goddess's pleasure. Victims are you of blood-stained Tydeus, but even now your mother visits the pitiless altars. No less on the other side is Haemon, ward of Hercules, led on by restless vigor. With unsated sword he speeds through thousands, now laying low the pride of Calydon, now Pylene's grim array, now sad Pleuron's sons, until, with wearied seer, he happens on Olenian beauties. Him he attacks as he turns toward his men and forbids them to retreat. A lad was he, with cheeks yet smooth and hair unshorn, and the Theban battle-axe aimed against his helm takes him unaware. His temples are cleft asunder, and his locks divided fall upon his shoulders, and he, not fearing such a fate, passed from life unwitting on its threshold. Then he slays fair-haired Hypanis and Polites. This one was keeping his beard for Phoebus, that one his hair for Iacchus, but cruel was either god, and joins Hyperenor to his victims and Damasus, who turned to flee, but the hero's lance sped through his shoulders and passed out by his heart, and tearing his buckler from his grasp, carried it on the lance point as it flew. Even yet would Ismenian Haemon be laying low his Inachian adversaries, for Amphitrion's son directs his darts and gives him strength. But against him Pallas urged fierce Tydeus, and now they met in rivalry of favor, and first the Terinthian thus calmly spoke. Good sister, what chance has thus brought about our meeting in the fog of war? Has royal Juno devised this evil? Sooner may she see me unutterable thought, assault the thunderbolt and make war against the mighty father. This man's race, but I disown him, since you do aid his foes. Yes, were it even Hylas or Amphitryon sent back from the world of Styx, that the spear of Tydeus sought in close combat? I remember and shall remember everlasting how much that godlike hand, how often that aegis of yours has labored for me, while, a thrall to hardship, I roamed through every land. Yes, you would have gone yourself to pathless Tartarus with me, did not Acheron exclude the gods. You gave me my home, yes, heaven, who could name a service so great. All Thebes is yours, if you have a mind to destroy it. I yield and crave pardon. So he spoke and departed. Pallas is soothed by the praise, her countenance is calm again, the anger spent, and the snakes erect upon her bosom sank to rest. Cadmean Haemon felt that the god had left him. More weakly he hurls his darts, nor recognizes his skill in any stroke. Then more and more his powers and courage fail him, nor is he ashamed to retreat, as he gives ground the Aeolian hero assails him, and poising a spear that he alone could wield, aims the blow where the rim of the helmet rests on the topmost margin of the shield, and the vulnerable throat gleams white. Nor erred his hand, and the spear had found a deadly spot, but Tritonia forbade, and suffered it to touch the left shoulder, sparing her brother for his merit's sake. But the warrior dares no longer hold its ground, or engage, or bear the sight of murderous Tydeus. His courage grows faint, and his confidence has departed. as when the bristly visage of a boar has been grazed by a Lucanian javelin point, and the blow has not sunk deep into his brain, nor has the aim been true. He lets the anger of his side stroke weaken, nor attacks the spear he knows too well. Lo, now indignant that Prothous, the leader of a squadron, is hurling sure darts with happy aim against the foe, Aenides furiously strikes two bodies with one shaft of pine, horseman and horse-footed steed. Prothous falls, and the horse upon him, and as he gropes for the lost reins, the horse tramples the helm upon his face and the shield upon his breast, until, as the last drops ebb from his wounds, he casts off the bridle and sinks with his head upon his master's body. Even so, from Mount Goranus fall an elm tree and a vine together, a twofold loss to the husbandman. But the elm more sorrowfully seeks also for its comrade tree, and falling grieves less for its own boughs than for the familiar grapes it crushes against its will. Corymbus of Helicon had taken arms against the Danaans, formerly the Muses' friend, to whom Eurynome herself, knowing full well his Stygian destiny, had long foretold his death by the position of the stars. Yet seeks he battles and warriors, perchance to find theme for song. Now lies he low, worthy himself to be sung with lasting praise. But the sisters wept his loss in silence. Attis, betrothed from childhood to Ismene, offspring of Agenor, went his way, a youth no stranger to the wars of Thebes, though Kira was his home, nor had he shunned his bride's kinsmen for their evil deeds. Nay, her misery undeserved and chaste humility commend her to her lover's favor. He too was noble, nor was the maiden's heart turned from him, and they were pleasing in each other's sight, had only fortune suffered it. But war forbids his marriage, and hence the youth's fiercer wrath against the foe. Among the foremost he rushes on, and now afoot with errant sword, now grasping the reins aloft, as though at some spectacle he drives before him the ranks of Lerna. With threefold robe of purple had his mother clothed his yet growing shoulders and smooth breast, and now, lest he should go in meaner raiment than his spouse, she had plated with gold his harness, and with gold his arrows, and his belt and armlets, and had encrusted his helm with inlay of gold. Trusting, alas, in such things as these, he challenges the Greeks to combat, and first assailing a weak company with his spear, he brings back spoil of arms to his comrades, and the slaughter accomplished returns to the friendly lines. So a Caspian lion beneath Hyrcanian shade, still smooth nor terrible yet in the yellow glory of his mane and guiltless of great carnage, raids the slow-moving flock, nor far from their fold while the shepherd is away, and sates his hunger on a tender lamb. Soon he feared not to attack Tydeus, knowing not his prowess, but judging only by his stature, and dared to vex him with his frail weapon, as of the shouted taunts at some and pursued others. At length the Aetolian turned his gaze by chance upon his feeble efforts, and with a terrible laugh, "Long since," he cries, "I have seen, insatiate one, 'tis famous a death that you desire." And forthwith, deeming the bold youth worthy of neither sword nor spear, with careless fingers lightly flung an unwarlike shaft. Yet the missile drained deep the recesses of the groin, as though hurled with all his might. His death assured, Aenides passed him by, and is too proud to plunder. "For not such spoils as these," says he, "will I hang up to Mars, or to you, warlike Pallas. Shame keep me far from taking them for my own pleasure. Scarcely had Diphyle left her bower and come with me to war, would I have borne her spoils that might mock at." So saying, he is led on to dream of nobler prizes of the fight, as when a lion by chance has slaughter innumerable in his power. He passes by the unwarlike calves and heifers. He is mad to drench himself in some mighty victim's blood, nor to crouch save on the neck of a chieftain bull. But Menicius fails not to hear the dying wail of fallen Attis. There he turns his horses and leaps down from his swift chariot. The Tegean warriors were drawing nigh him where he lay, nor did the Tyrians hold them off. For shame, Cadmean youth, he cries, that belie your earthborn fathers. Where do you fly, degenerate ones? Have you not fallen more nobly for our folk, the stranger Attis? Yes, still but a stranger, nor yet hapless one has he avenged his spouse. Shall we betray a pledge so great? Heartened by righteous shame, they rally, and each bethinks himself of those he loves. Meanwhile, in the seclusion of their chamber, the sisters, innocent pair, guiltless offspring of unhappy Oedipus and Jocasta, mingle their converse with varying complaint. Now grieve they for their present ills, but starting from the far origins of their fate, one laments their mother's marriage, the other their father's eyes. This one the brother that reigns, that one him that is in exile, and both lament the war. Long do they hesitate in their unhappy prayers, fear sways them either way, in doubt whom they wish defeated in the fight and whom victorious, but in their silent hearts the exile wins the day. So when Pandion's birds seek once more trusty welcome and the homes they left when winter drove them forth, and they stand over the nest and tell to the house the old story of their woe, a broken, dolorous sound goes forth. They deem it words, nor in truth does their voice sound other than words. Then after tears and a long silence, Ismene begins again. What delusion is this of mortals? What means this trust deceive? Is it true that then our cares are awake in time of rest and our fancies return in sleep so clearly? Lo, I who could not bear the thought of wedlock, not even ensure abiding peace, this very night, my sister, for shame, I beheld myself a bride. Whence did my fevered slumber bring my husband before my vision, whom I scarce know by sight? Once in this palace I caught sight of him, my sister, not of my own will, while pledges in some wise were exchanged for my betrothal. One the instant all was confusion to my view, and sudden fire fell between us, and his mother followed me, demanding Attis back with loud clamor. What presage of disaster, to whom I know not, is this? And yet I have no fear, so but our home be safe, and the Dorian host depart, and we can reconcile our haughty brothers. Such was their converse when the quiet house started at a sudden tumult, and Attis, rescued at great labor's cost, bloodless but still living, is borne in. His hand is on his heart. Outside the shield the neck droops languid, and the tresses hang backward from his forehead. Jocasta saw him first, and trembling called his beloved Ismene. For that prayer alone did the dying accents of her son-in-law utter. That name alone hovers on his parched mouth. The women shriek, and the maiden lifts her hands to her face. Fierce shame restrains her, yet she must needs go to him. Jocasta grants the dying man this final boon, and shows her and sets her before him. 4 times at the very point of death he bravely raised his eyes, and failing vision of her name, at her alone, neglecting the light of heaven, he gazes, and cannot gaze enough on the face he loves. Then, because his mother is not near and his father is laid in blissful death, they give to his betrothed the sad office of closing his eyes. There, at last, unwitnessed and alone, she gave utterance to wifely grief and drowned her eyes in tears. While these things were happening in Thebes, Enyo, a fire with torch fresh charged and other serpents, was restoring the fight. They yearned for battle as though they had but lately borne the opening shock of combat, hand to hand, and every sword still shone bright and clear. Anides is preeminent, though Parthenopaeus, drawing an unerring shaft, and Hippomedon trample the faces of the dying with furious steed, though the spear of Capaneus fly even from far with a message to Ionian troops. That day was the day of Tydeus. From him they flee and tremble as he cries out, "Where do you turn your backs? Lo, you can avenge your slain comrades and atone for that sad night. I am he who took 50 lives in unsated carnage. Bring as many, yes, as many squadrons in swarms. Are there no fathers, no loving brothers of the fallen? Why such forgetfulness of sorrow? Shame on me that I departed content to Anakian Mycenae. Are these all that stand for Thebes? Are these your monarch's strength? And where can I find that noble chieftain?" Therewith he spies him on the left of the array, encouraging his columns and conspicuous by the flash of haughty helm. Not less swiftly does he rush to meet him all afire than the bird that wields the flame swoops on the frightened snow-white swan and enfolds him in his mighty shadow. Then he first speaks. "Most righteous king of the Ionian people, meet we in open fight and show our swords at last? Or does it please you to await the night and your wonted darkness?" "Not," spoke he in reply, "but the whizzing cornel shaft comes flying against his foe, bearing the chieftain's message. The prudent hero strikes it aside just as it reached its mark, and himself eagerly hurled a mighty weapon with strength unknown before. On was the angry lance flying to end the war. On it the gods, Sidonian and Greek, who favored either side, turned their eyes. Cruel Orestes checked the course and preserves Eteocles for a brother's impious deed. The erring spear point lighted on Phlegyas, the charioteer. Then a great fight arose of heroes, for the Aetolian, drawing his sword, charged more fiercely, while Theban warriors protected the retreating king. So in the murk of night a crowd of shepherds forces away a wolf from the bullock he has seized, but he relentlessly rises up against them, nor cares to attack those who bar his way. Him only, whom he had once assailed, does he pursue. Just so does Tydeus ignore the lines arrayed against him and the lesser throng and pass them by in the fight. Yet he wounds the face of Thoas, the breast of Dilochus, Clonius in the flank, stern Hippodades in the groin. Now he throws back their limbs to mutilated trunks, or whirls heads and helms together through the air. And now he had enclosed himself with the spoils and corpses of the fallen. The ring of foes spends itself on him alone. At him alone all darts aspire. Some lodge within his limbs, some fall amiss, others Tritonia tears away. Many stand stiffly in his shield. Thick planted already with spears, his buckler is a quivering grove of steel, and his native boarskin is torn upon his back and shoulders. Gone is the towering glory of the crest, and the Mars that held the peak of his grim helmet falls, a happy omen to its lord. The bare bronze is fixed and welded to his temples, stones strike his head and fall rattling about his armor. His helm now fills with blood, and now his wounded breast is drenched by a dark mingling torrent of blood and sweat. He looks round upon his applauding comrades and on faithful Pallas, who conceals from afar her face behind her shield, for she was on her way to soften with her tears her mighty father. Lo, an ashen spear charged with mighty wrath and fate cleaves the zephyrs, its author unperceived. Melanippus it was, the son of Astacus, and he betrayed not his own work and would fain have been hidden, but the joy of his troop revealed him all affrighted, for Tydeus, bending over his groin, had sunk upon his side and let go his round shield. Aeonians and Pelasgians mingle their shouts and groans and form a barrier and protect the indignant hero. He, spying afar through the foe, the hated Astacides, summons for a stroke all the vital forces that remain, and hurls a dart that Hopleus, who stood by, had given him. The effort makes the blood spout and flow. Then his grieving comrades drag him away, eager yet to fight. What fiery zeal! and calling for spears, and even in death's agony refusing to die, and set him on the farthest margin of the field, propped against shields on either side, and promise with tears a return to conflicts of fierce Mars. But he too now felt the light of heaven fail him, and his mighty spirit yields the final chill. And lying on the ground he cries, "Have pity, sons of Inachus, I pray not that my bones be taken to Argos or my Aetolian home. I care not for funeral obsequies. I hate my limbs and my body so frail and useless, deserter of the soul within it. Your head, O Melanippus, could one but bring me that, for you are groveling on the plain, so indeed I trust, nor did my valor fail me at the last. Go, Hippomedon, I beg, if you have aught of Atreus' blood, go, you, Arcadian, youth renowned in your first wars, and you, O Capaneus, mightiest now of the Argive host." All were moved, but Capaneus first darts away, and finding the son of Astacus, lifts him still breathing from the dust, and returns with him on his left shoulder, staining his back with blood from the stricken wound. In such wise did the Terinthian return from the Arcadian lair, when he brought home to applauding Argos the captive boar. Tydeus raises himself and turns his gaze upon him. Then, mad with joy and anger, when he saw them drag the gasping visage, and saw his handiwork therein, he bids them cut off and hand to him his foe's fierce head. And seizing it in his left hand, he gazes at it, and glows to see it still warm in life, and the wrathful eyes still flickering before they closed. Content was the wretched man, but avenging Tisiphone demands yet more. And now, her father appeased, had Tritonia come and was bringing immortal luster to the unhappy hero, when, lo, she sees him befouled with the shattered brain's corruption and his jaws polluted with living blood. Nor can his comrades wrest it from him. Fierce stood the Gorgon with outstretched snakes, and the horned serpents upreared before her face overshadowed the goddess. With averted face, she flees from him where he lies, nor enters heaven before that the mystic lamp and Ilyssos, with plenteous water, has purged her vision. Oh, nerds. Whew. Thank you all so much for listening. Oh, those are so fun and also so long. I always wish I could do like more than one, and then I read for an hour straight and then my voice starts going, oh, funny. This was really fun. The war is violent and horrible, but there are just such interesting moments in here. Firstly, we get like a whole speech from Hades, which you can tell this is really late epic because that never happens. Like, he otherwise like never says a word basically in any surviving anything. So it's really interesting. We have this like whole moment in the underworld, the expectations, like surprise that this guy Amphiaraus is there, and he's like a hero, but he's also a prophet. And anyway, it's just very interesting. I love this epic. It is odd and long and filled with so many different myths, and yet ultimately still just about this brother on brother war. It's so interesting that Oedipus and Jocasta are still living in this version. I love this moment where Ismene, who's like, I've never really seen this guy I'm supposed to marry. I kind of flashed a glance at him once by accident when everyone was deciding we were going to get married, but otherwise couldn't tell you what he looks like. And then he's dying and he's brought to her and she's like, well, I guess this is the time to be a wife. And suddenly they both love each other. Anyway, wacky times in the ancient world. Let's talk about Myths Baby is written and produced by me, Liv Albert. Michaela Penguish is the Hermes to my Olympians. Select music by Luke Chaos. The podcast is part of the Memory Collective Podcast Network, a very slowly growing thing where I try to pull together people for mutual support who are sharing history of the ancient world in a way that is empathetic to everyone and not just the global west. Gaza is starving. The West Bank is being bulldozed. And our countries are letting this happen. We're watching the worst humanitarian, not even humanitarian crisis, because it is an intentionally inflicted genocide. We are actively watching the worst mass murder of civilians. I mean, I'm sure there are other horrors, and so I don't want to say this for sure, but like this is certainly going to be the most famous mass murder of civilians since the Holocaust. And if you look up the definition of a Holocaust, which is just a word used to describe that one horrific genocidal event in human history, just go ahead and look up the definition of a Holocaust, because people don't want you to use that word, but check the definition. It's horrifying, and I don't even know what to do anymore. So call every representative you have. We just can't let these people starve while we watch on our phones and while people in Tel Aviv live like an hour away. Did you know that you could drive for like 20 minutes in Israel and hit the wall that separates Gaza from the rest of their ancestral land of Palestine, now known as Israel? And you can like there's food. There's like beach resorts like an hour drive from Gaza where you can get like a buffet. That's like an hour away by driving. And those people in Gaza are being intentionally starved. And even when they're being given aid, it comes at like a 50-50 chance of getting shot by the people who are ostensibly giving you the aid. Our countries are morally bankrupt. This is like... Oh, anyway, I clearly could go on forever. Thank you if you listened this far. I am Liv, and I love this shit. And I love the ancient Mediterranean, particularly some of the most ancient parts of the Mediterranean, which are found in Palestine. Like a stone's throw from Tyre, where Cadmus comes from, and where every time I said the word Tyrian or Sidonian, I want you all to know that that is all coming from Lebanon, basically on the border, like basically also Gaza and Palestine. This is so connected, and I think it's really important that we remember that, and we don't just like pretend that this historical and mythical realm is like not Palestine. I am Liv, and I love this shit. I love the Palestinian people, and I want so badly for them to live. So if you agree, I don't know, again, call everyone, email everyone, take to the streets. Handle CEOs. Who's to know? What are we saying? Bye. God. Bye.